All right, we are a little past 8 o'clock. I just had a little bit of a catch up to get done, but we are ready to get started tonight. As soon as I get one more social post out. Whoopsies. There we are. All right, due diligence is done. So, let's get settled. Let's get comfortable. And let's get started with our return to the Devil's Dictionary. Welcome back. I need to update a few of our assets here. I've been lazy, wouldn't you know? And let's break that there. Remember the author's name. Aha! I do believe that is correct. Alright, and then I have not made a run to the kitchen for a drink yet, so we're just grabbing a Diet Coke from the office fridge. Because you know what? Sometimes life just gets away from you. Yep, one of those nights indeed. So, getting into our pleasant discovery of a comfort book, this is an appropriate night for one of those nights. I am extremely happy with how we found the Devil's Dictionary, and that it just works. It just works. Cat, get out of the way, I need to get in the fridge. Yep, alright. Never mind the tracking going a little wild. That's just part of the game. Alright, so, last time we finished reading Demian. It was reasonably okay. It ended a little strangely, which I think was always in the cards. It was always going to end strangely, because it was a bit of a strange book all along. And that's fine. We just had a little topsy-turvy in how we went through. That's the fate of anything that you're going to be getting into with self-actualization and growth and coming of age and all that, particularly with the time. Yeah, it was written and finished right with the advent of World War I. So it's understandable that things got a little strange with that one. But yeah, it was a nice change of pace for us, I think. While Emile was very swiftly falling in our estimation, he did eventually come about. And I don't think he's quite honorary Henry status, but it was a very near thing. So, with the previous project finished, and really no idea of what I want to read next, it is a great time for a little bit of a palate cleanser. And yeah, it was always a little bit weird, but the last chapter was, well, probably the last two chapters were off the rails. When Demian's mother came into focus, things got really culty and a little icky squicky. So, yes, they were all consenting adults at this point, but that doesn't change the fact ick is ick. And you may say, don't yuck your yum. Everyone involved in this book has been dead for at least 30 years. I will yuck all of the yums. Ick. Ick, ick, ick. Alright. That's out of my system now. Let's go ahead and switch over. We'll jump into our reading nook and find our comfort book. That's not that. They're not here right now. And happily, we're starting from the letter D. I rather don't expect to see a reference to Demian in this, but you never know. There are, we've had stranger things happen. So, let's resume tonight with The Devil's Dictionary by Ambrose Bierce, a delightfully dastardly bit of a dalliance with diction. Yeah, I did that. Alright. So, the letter D. Damn. Verb. A word formerly much used by the Paphlagonians, the meaning of which is lost. By the learned Dr. Dolabelli Gack, it is believed to have been a term of satisfaction, implying the highest possible degree of mental tranquility. Professor Groke, on the contrary, thinks it expressed an emotion of tumultuous delight, because it so frequently occurs in combination with the word jod or god, meaning joy. It would be with great diffidence that I should advance an opinion conflicting with that of either of these formidable authorities. Dance. Verb, intransitive. To leap about to the sound of tittering music, preferably with arms about your neighbor's wife or daughter. There are many kinds of dances, but all those requiring the participation of the two sexes have two characteristics in common. They are conspicuously innocent and warmly loved by the vicious. Danger. Noun. A savage beast which, when it sleeps, man girds at and despises, but takes himself away by leaps and bounds when it arises. Ambat delasso. Daring. Noun. One of the most conspicuous qualities of a man in security. Datary. Noun. A high ecclesiastic official of the Roman Catholic Church, whose important function is to brand the Pope's bulls with the words Datum Romae. He enjoys a princely revenue and the friendship of God. Dawn. Noun. The time when men of reason go to bed. Certain old men prefer to rise at about that time, taking a cold bath and a long walk with an empty stomach, and otherwise mortifying the flesh. They then point with pride to these practices as the cause of their sturdy health and ripe years, the truth being that they are hearty and old, not because of their habits, but in spite of them. The reason we find only robust persons doing this thing is that it has killed all the others who have tried it. Okay, I like that one. Day. Noun. A period of 24 hours, mostly misspent. This period is divided into two parts: the day proper and the night, or day improper. The former devoted to sins of business, the latter consecrated to the other sort. These two kinds of social activity overlap. I missed this. Oh, I missed this so much. Dead. Adjective. Done with the work of breathing. Done with all the world. The mad race run. Through to the end. The golden goal attained and found to be a hole. Squat Hole Jones. Debauchee. Noun. One who has so earnestly pursued pleasure that he has had the misfortune to overtake it. Debt. Noun. An ingenious substitute for the chain and whip of the slave driver. As, pent in an aquarium, the troutlet swims round and round his tank to find an outlet, pressing his nose against the glass that holds him, nor ever sees the prison that enfolds him. So the poor debtor, seeing naught around him, yet feels the narrow limits that impound him, grieves at his debt and studies to evade it, and finds, at last, he might as well have paid it. Barlow S. Vode. That is a little overbearing, considering, yes, the secret answer is, might as well have paid the debt. Oh, it would have all been so much easier to just have paid all my debts. Very, well, this predates even the Roaring Twenties, so this is just a different time indeed. That's a thought. If the 1920s were the Roaring Twenties, what do we call these 20s? There are so many options. The Wailing 20s? I don't know. Alright. Decalogue. Noun. A series of commandments, 10 in number. Just enough to permit an intelligent selection for observance, but not enough to embarrass the choice. Following is the revised edition of the Decalogue, calculated for this meridian. Oh, this is going to be good. Thou shalt no God but me adore. 'Twere too expensive to have more. No images nor idols make, for Robert Ingersoll to break. Take not God's name in vain, select the time when it will have effect. Work not on Sabbath days at all, but go to see the teams play ball. Honor thy parents, that creates, for life insurance, lower rates. Kill not, abet not those who kill. Thou shalt not pay thy butcher's bill. Kiss not thy neighbor's wife, unless thine own neighbor doth caress. Don't steal, thou'lt never thus compete successfully in business. Cheat. Bear not false witness, that is law. That is low, but here 'tis rumored so and so. Covet thou not that thou hast not, by hook or crook or somehow got. G.J. Decide. Verb. Intransitive. To succumb to the preponderance of one set of influences over another set. A leaf was riven from a tree. I mean to fall to earth, said he. The west wind rising made him veer. Eastward, said he, I now shall veer. The east wind rose with greater force. Said he, 'twere wise to change my course. With equal power they contend. He said, my judgment I suspend. Down died the winds, the leaf elate cried, I've decided to fall straight. First thoughts are best, that's not the moral. Just choose your own, and we'll not quarrel. Howe'er your choice may chance to fall, you'll have no hand in it at all. G.J. Defame. Verb. Transitive. To lie about another. To tell the truth about another. Defenseless. Adjective. Unable to attack. Okay. Degenerate. Adjective. Less conspicuously admirable than one's ancestors. The contemporaries of Homer were striking examples of degeneracy. It required 10 of them to raise a rock or a riot that one of the heroes of the Trojan War could have raised with ease. Homer never tires of sneering at men who live in these degenerate days, which is perhaps why they suffered him to beg his bread, a marked instance of returning good for evil. By the way, for if they had forbidden him, he would certainly have starved. Degradation. Noun. One of the stages of moral and social progress, from private station to political preferment. Dinotherium. Noun. An extinct pachyderm that flourished when the pterodactyl was in fashion. The latter was a native of Ireland, its name pronounced pterodactyl, or Peter O'Dactyl, as the man pronouncing it may chance to have heard it spoken or seen it printed. That's probably a rather more timely reference than we're missing. Otherwise, it's just a random Irish slur, slant. Kind of the fun part of reading satire that is out of its time, out of its place. Some things are, in fact, timeless. Things that are a little bit more pointed might miss their mark. We can appreciate them, but it doesn't have the same impact. Déjeuner. Noun. The breakfast of an American who has been in Paris. Variously pronounced. Hey! That sounds targeted. Hey, hold on. Delegation. Noun. In American politics, an article of merchandise that comes in sets. Deliberation. Noun. The act of examining one's bread to determine which side it is buttered on. Yeah, that was uncalled for. Not incorrect, but uncalled for. Deluge. Noun. A notable first experiment in baptism which washed away the sins and sinners of the world. Look out, Noah! Delusion. Noun. The father of a most respectable family, comprising enthusiasm and affection, self-denial, faith, hope, charity, and many other goodly sons and daughters. All hail delusion! Were it not for thee, the world turned topsy-turvy, we should see. For vice, respectable with cleanly fancies, would fly abandoned virtue's gross advances. Mumfrey Mapple. Dentist. Noun. A prestidigitator who, putting metal into your mouth, pulls coins out of your pocket. So some things really have never changed, have they? Dependent. Adjective. Reliant upon another's generosity for the support which you are not in a position to exact from his fears. Deputy. Noun. A male relative of an office holder or of his bondsman. The deputy is commonly a beautiful young man with a red necktie and an intricate system of cobwebs extending from his nose to his desk. When accidentally struck by the janitor's broom, he gives off a cloud of dust. Chief Deputy, the master cried, today the books are to be tried by experts and accountants who have been commissioned to go through our office here to see if we have stolen injudiciously. Please have the proper entries made, the proper balances displayed, conforming to the whole amount of cash on hand, which they will count. I've long admired your punctual way, here at the break and close of day, confronting in your chair the crowd of businessmen whose voices loud and gestures violent you quell, by some mysterious calm spell, some magic lurking in your look that brings the noisiest to book, and spreads a holy and profound tranquillity o'er all around. So orderly all's done that they who came to draw remain to pay. But now the time depends at last that you employ your genius vast in energies more active. Rise and shake the lightnings from your eyes, inspire your underlings, and fling your spirit into everything. The master's hand here dealt a whack upon the deputy's bent back, when straightway to the floor there fell a shrunken globe, a rattling shell, a blackened, withered, eyeless head. The man had been a 12-month dead. Jamrak Hollobum. Destiny. Noun. A tyrant's authority for crime, and a fool's excuse for failure. Diagnosis. Noun. A physician's forecast of the disease by the patient's pulse and purse. Okay, American healthcare is about the same after 100 years. Diaphragm. Noun. A muscular partition separating disorders of the chest from disorders of the bowels. Dairy. Noun. A daily record of that part of one's life which he can relate to himself without blushing. Diary. Why did I say dairy? Words are hard. That's why we read the dictionary. Hearst kept a diary wherein were writ all that he had of wisdom and of wit. So the recording angel, when Hearst died, erased all entries of his own and cried, "I'll judge you by your diary." Said Hearst, "Thank you, 'twill show you I am Saint the First." Straightway producing jubilant and proud that record from a pocket in his shroud. The angel slowly turned the pages o'er, each stupid line of which he knew before, glooming and gleaming as by turns he hit on shallow sentiment and stolen wit. Then gravely closed the book and gave it back. "My friend, you've wandered from your proper track. You'd never be content this side the tomb, for big ideas heaven has little room, and hell's no latitude for making mirth," he said, and kicked the fellow back to earth. The mad philosopher. Dictator. Noun. The chief of a nation that prefers the pestilence of despotism to the plague of anarchy. We've strayed from satire to just spitting facts at this point. Thank you very much. A dictionary. Noun. A malevolent literary device for cramping the growth of a language and making it hard and inelastic. This dictionary, however, is a most useful work. Well done, Ambrose. Well done. Die. Noun. The singular of dice. We seldom hear the word, because there is a prohibitory proverb, "Never say die." At long intervals, however, someone says the die is cast, which is not true, for it is cut. The word is found in an immortal couplet by that eminent poet and domestic economist, Senator Depew. A cube of cheese no larger than a die may bait the trap to catch a nibbling my. Damn it. Digestion. Noun. The conversion of victuals into virtues. When the process is imperfect, vices are evolved instead. a circumstance from which the wicked writer Dr. Jeremiah Blenn infers that the ladies are the greater sufferers from dyspepsia. Diplomacy. Noun. The patriotic art of lying for one's country. Disabuse. Verb. Transitive. To present your neighbor with another and better error than the one which he has deemed it advantageous to embrace. Discriminate. Verb. Intransitive. To note the particulars in which one person or thing is, if possible, more objectionable than another. Discussion. Noun. A method of confirming others in their errors. Disobedience. Noun. The silver lining to the cloud of servitude. Disobey. Verb. Transitive. To celebrate with an appropriate ceremony the maturity of a command. His right to govern me is clear as day. My duty manifest to disobey. And if that fit observance or error I shut, may I and duty be alike undone. Israfel Brown. Dissemble. Verb. Intransitive. To put a clean shirt upon the character. Let us dissemble. Adam. Distance. Noun. The only thing that the rich are willing for the poor to call theirs and keep. Distress. Noun. A disease incurred by exposure to the prosperity of a friend. Divination. Noun. The art of nosing out the occult. Divination is of as many kinds as there are fruit-bearing varieties of the flowering dunce and the early fool. Dog. Noun. A kind of additional or subsidiary deity designed to catch the overflow and surplus of the world's worship. This divine being, in some of his smaller and silkier incarnations, takes in the affection of woman the place to which there is no human male aspirant. The dog is a survival, an anachronism. He toils not, neither does he spin. Yet Solomon, in all his glory, never lay upon a doormat all day long, sun-soaked and fly-fed and fat, while his master worked for the means wherewith to purchase the idle wag of the Solomonic tale, seasoned with a look of tolerant recognition. Dragoon. Noun. A soldier who combines dash and steadiness in so equal measure that he makes his advances on foot and his retreats on horseback. Dramatist. Noun. One who adapts plays from the French. Druids. Noun. Priests and ministers of an ancient Celtic religion, which did not disdain to employ the humble allurement of human sacrifice. Very little is now known about the Druids and their faith. Pliny says their religion, originating in Britain, spread eastward as far as Persia. Caesar says those who desired to study its mysteries went to Britain. Caesar himself went to Britain, but does not appear to have obtained any high preferment in the Druidical church, although his talent for human sacrifice was considerable. Druids performed their religious rites in groves, and knew nothing of church mortgages and the season ticket system of pew rents. They were, in short, heathens, and, as they were once complacently catalogued by a distinguished prelate of the Church of England, dissenters. Duckbill, noun. Your account at your restaurant during the canvasback season. Duel, noun. A formal ceremony, preliminary to the reconciliation of two enemies. Great skill is necessary to its satisfactory observance. If awkwardly performed, the most unexpected and deplorable consequences sometimes ensue. A long time ago, a man lost his life in a duel. That dueling's a gentlemanly vice, I hold, and wish that it had been my lot to live my life out in some favored spot, some country where it is considered nice to split a rival like a fish, or slice a husband like a spud, or, with a shot, bring down a debtor doubled in a knot, and ready to be put upon the ice. Some miscreants there are whom I do long to shoot, to stab, or some such way reclaim, the scurvy rogues to better lives and manners. I seem to see them now a mighty throng. It looks as if to challenge me they came, jauntily marching with brass bands and banners. Zamba Qdar. Dullard, noun. A member of the reigning dynasty in letters and life. The Dullards came in with Adam, and being both numerous and sturdy, have overrun the habitable world. The secret of their power is their insensibility to blows. Tickle them with a bludgeon, and they laugh with a platitude. The Dullards came originally from Boeotia, whence they were driven by stress of starvation, their dullness having blighted the crops. For some centuries they infested Philistia, and many of them are called Philistines to this day. In the turbulent times of the Crusades, they withdrew thence and gradually overspread all Europe, occupying most of the high places in politics, art, literature, science, and theology. Such a detachment of dullards came over with the Pilgrims in the Mayflower, and made a favorable report of the country. Their increase by birth, immigration, and conversion has been rapid and steady. According to the most trustworthy statistics, the number of adult dullards in the United States is but little short of 30 millions. Including the statisticians, the intellectual center of the race is somewhere around Peoria, Illinois. But the New England dullard is the most shockingly moral. Duty, noun. That which sternly impels us in the direction of profit, along the line of desire. Sir Lavender Portwine, in favour at court, was wroth at his master who'd kissed Lady Port. His anger provoked him to take the king's head, but duty prevailed, and he took the king's bread instead. G.J. All right, that brings us through the letter D. There were a few good ones in there, and an entirely unwarranted personal attack upon yours truly. Not incorrect, but entirely unwarranted. How this man knew to come at me from beyond the grave is mystifying. Alright, so let's continue with the letter E. Eat. Verb. Intransitive. To perform successively and successfully the functions of mastication, humectation, and deglutition. I was in the drawing room enjoying my dinner, said Brillat Savarin, beginning an anecdote. What? Interrupted Rochebriant. Eating dinner in a drawing room? I must beg you to observe, monsieur, explained the great gastronome, that I did not say I was eating my dinner, but enjoying it. I dined an hour before. Eavesdrop. Verb. Intransitive. Secretly to overhear a catalogue of the crimes and vices of another, or yourself. A lady with one of her ears applied to an open keyhole heard inside 2 female gossips in converse free. The subject engaging them was she. I think, said one, and my husband thinks, that she's a prying, inquisitive minx. As soon as no more of it she could hear, the lady, indignant, removed her ear. I will not stay, she said with a pout, to hear my character lied about. Jupette Shirley. The poems and things are very nice additions. Eccentricity. Noun. A method of distinction so cheap that fools employ it to accentuate their incapacity. Economy. Noun. Purchasing the barrel of whiskey that you do not need for the price of the cow that you cannot afford. Edible. Adjective. Good to eat, and wholesome to digest, as a worm to a toad to a snake to a pig to a man, and a man to a worm. Editor. Noun. A person who combines the judicial functions of Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Acis, but is placable with an obulus. A severely virtuous censor, but so charitable withal that he tolerates the virtues of others and the vices of himself, who flings about him the splintering lightning and sturdy thunders of admonition, till he resembles a bunch of firecrackers petulantly uttering his mind at the tail of a dog. Then straightway murmurs a mild melodious lay, soft as the cooing of a donkey, intoning its prayer to the evening star, master of mysteries and lord of law, high pinnacled upon the throne of thought, his face suffused with the dim splendors of the transfiguration, his legs intertwisted and his tongue a cheek. The editor spills his will along the paper and cuts it off in lengths to suit, and at intervals from behind the veil of the temple is heard the voice of the foreman, demanding 3 inches of wit and 6 lines of religious meditation, or bidding him turn off the wisdom and whack up some pathos. Ooh. Oh, the lord of the law on the throne of thought, a gilded impostor is he. Of shreds and patches his robes are wrought. His crown is brass, himself an ass, and his power is a fiddle-dee-dee. Crankily, prating of naught, silly old quilly old monarch of thought. Public opinion's camp follower he, thundering, blundering, plundering free. Affected, ungracious, suspected, mendacious, respected, contemporary. J. H. Bumbleshook. I like it was a little bit of glazing, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, but if a man who writes things that were originally published in newspapers is writing about his editor, you must step extra carefully. Education. Noun. That which discloses to the wise and disguises from the foolish their lack of understanding. Effect. The second of 2 phenomena which always occur together in the same order. The first, called a cause, is said to generate the other, which is no more sensible than it would be for one who has never seen a dog except in the pursuit of a rabbit to declare the rabbit the cause of a dog. Egotist. Noun. A person of low taste, more interested in himself than in me. Fair. Megaseth, chosen to serve the state in the halls of legislative debate, one day with all his credentials came to the Capitol's door and announced his name. The doorkeeper looked with a comical twist of the face at the eminent egotist, and said, "Go away, for we settle here all manners of questions naughty and queer, and we cannot have, when the speaker demands, to be told how every member stands. A man who to all things under the sky assents by eternally voting aye." Ejection. Noun. An approved remedy for the disease of garrulity. It is also much used in cases of extreme poverty. Elector. Noun. One who enjoys the sacred privilege of voting for the man of another man's choice. Electricity. Noun. The power that causes all natural phenomena not known to be caused by something else. It is the same thing as lightning, and its famous attempt to strike Dr. Franklin is one of the most picturesque incidences in that great and good man's career. The memory of Dr. Franklin is justly held in great reverence, particularly in France, where a waxen effigy of him was recently on exhibition, bearing the following touching account of his life and services to science. Monsieur Franklin, inventor of electricity, this illustrious savant, after having made several voyages around the world, died on the Sandwich Islands, and was devoured by savages, of whom not a single fragment was ever recovered. Electricity seems destined to play a most important part in the arts and industries. The question of its economical application to some purposes is still unsettled, but experiment has already proved that it will propel a streetcar better than a gas jet, and give more light than a horse. Yes. Elegy. Noun. A composition in verse, in which, without employing any of the methods of humour, the writer aims to produce in the reader's mind the dampest kind of dejection. The most famous English example begins somewhat like this. The cur foretells the knell of parting day. The loafing herd winds slowly o'er the lea. The wise man homeward plods, I only stay to fiddle-faddle in a minor key. Eloquence. Noun. The art of orally persuading fools that white is the color that it appears to be. It includes the gift of making any color appear white. Elysium. Noun. An imaginary, delightful country, which the ancients foolishly believed to be inhabited by the spirits of the good. This ridiculous and mischievous fable was swept off the face of the earth by the early Christians. May their souls be happy in heaven. Emancipation. Noun. A bondman's change from the tyranny of another to the despotism of himself. He was a slave. At word he went and came. His iron collar cut him to the bone. Then liberty erased his owner's name, tightened the rivets, and inscribed his own. G.J. Embalm. Verb. Intransitive. To cheat vegetation by locking up the gases upon which it feeds. By embalming their dead and thereby deranging the natural balance between animal and vegetable life, the Egyptians made their once fertile and populous country barren and incapable of supporting more than a meager crew. The modern metallic burial casket is a step in the same direction, and many a dead man who ought now to be ornamenting his neighbor's lawn as a tree, or enriching his table as a bunch of radishes, is doomed to a long inutility. We shall get him after a while if we are spared, but in the meantime the violet and rose are languishing for a nibble at his gluteus maximus. Emotion. Noun. A prostrating disease caused by a determination of the heart to the head. It is sometimes accompanied by a copious discharge of hydrated chloride of sodium from the eyes. Encomiast. Noun. A special but not particular kind of liar. Encomiast. End. Noun. The position farthest removed on either hand from the interlocutor. The man was perishing apace, who played the tambourine. The seal of death was on his face. 'Twas pallid, for 'twas clean. This is the end, the sick man said, in faint and failing tones. A moment later he was dead, and tambourine was bones. Tinley Rocco. Enough. Pronoun. All there is in the world, if you like it. Enough is as good as a feast, for that matter. Enougher's as good as a feast for the platter. Ardley S. Strunk. Entertainment. Noun. Any kind of amusement whose inroads stop short of death by injection. Okay. Enthusiasm. Noun. A distemper of youth, curable by small doses of repentance in connection with outward applications of experience. Byron, who recovered long enough to call it entuzzi-muzzi, had a relapse, which carried him off to Missolonghi. Envelope. Noun. The coffin of a document, the scabbard of a bill, the husk of a remittance, the bedgown of a love letter. Envy. Noun. Emulation, adapted to the meanest capacity. Epaulette. Noun. An ornamented badge, serving to distinguish a military officer from the enemy, that is to say, from the officer of lower rank, to whom his death would give promotion. Epicure. Noun. An an opponent of Epicurus, an abstemious philosopher who, holding that pleasure should be the chief aim of man, wasted no time in gratification of the senses. Epigram. Noun. A short, sharp saying, in prose or verse, frequently characterized by acidity or acerbity, and sometimes by wisdom. Following are some of the more notable epigrams of the learned and ingenious Dr. Jamrach Hollebom. We know better the needs of ourselves than of others. To serve oneself is economy of administration. In each human heart are a tiger, a pig, an ass, and a nightingale. Diversity of character is due to their unequal activity. There are 3 sexes: males, females, and girls. Beauty in women and distinction in men are alike in this. They seem to be unthinking of a kind of credibility. Women in love are less ashamed than men. They have less to be ashamed of. While your friend holds you affectionately by both your hands, you are safe, for you can watch both his. Epitaph. Noun. An inscription on a tomb, showing that virtues acquired by death have a retroactive effect. Following is a touching example. Here lie the bones of Parson Platt, wise, pious, humble, and all that, who showed us life as all should live it. Let that be said, and God forgive it. Erudition. Noun. Dust shaken out of a book into an empty skull. So wide his erudition's mighty span, he knew creation's origin and plan, and only came by accident to grief. He thought, poor man, 'twas right to be a thief. Romoc Pute. Esoteric. Adjective. Very particularly abstruse, and consummately occult. The ancient philosophies were of two kinds: exoteric, those that the philosophers themselves could partly understand, and esoteric, those that nobody could understand. It is the latter that have most profoundly affected modern thought, and found greatest acceptance in our time. Ethnology. Noun. The science that treats of the various tribes of man as robbers, thieves, swindlers, dunces, lunatics, idiots, and ethnologists. Nope, dropping some frames. Hang tight. Alright, I think we're about... Oh, well, no, dropping down again. I know it shouldn't matter, but I swear it's the weather. Really, having a hard line, the weather should have no bearing at all on my internet, but here we are, a thunderstorm coming through, and... Oh, boy. Alright, I think we're stable again. Make sure that we're able to get up to live on the monitor, just a few seconds behind. Okay, looks good. Well, no, it doesn't. Now it's dropping again. Thank you, Internet, for once again bringing us such joy. Okay, I think we're good now. Eucharist. Noun. A sacred feast of the religious sect of Theophagi. A dispute once unhappily arose among the members of this sect as to what it was that they ate. In this controversy, some 500,000 have already been slain, and the question is still unsettled. Eulogy. Noun. Praise of a person who has either the advantages of wealth and power, or the consideration to be dead. Evangelist. Noun. A bearer of good tidings, particularly in a religious sense, such as assure us of our own salvation, and the damnation of our neighbors. Everlasting. Adjective. Lasting forever. It is with no small diffidence that I venture to offer this brief and elementary definition, for I am not unaware of the existence of a bulky volume by some time Bishop of Worcester, entitled A Partial Definition of the Word Everlasting, as used in the authorized version of the Holy Scriptures. His book was once esteemed of great authority in the Anglican Church, and is still, I understand, studied with pleasure to the mind and profit of the soul. Well, also everlasting is internet troubles. Hiccups that just do not go away. And here we are, once again, going round and round and round again. Spin and spin the YouTube feed goes. Where it stops, no one knows. Yes, yes. Spin, 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 spin. Okay, seriously. I just want to get through E. I just want to get through E and we can take a break. Just give me this, please. Please. One of these days I need to get a backup internet connection or something, but I worry that it's the same upstream, so it would be the same issues. This is a bad stretch. Wow. This is much longer than usual for our hiccups. I'm glad we're just reading silly dictionary entries rather than anything actually pressing. Yeah, there is definitely something going on a little upstream, I do believe, because I'm getting some rather monumental ping, even to Google. Let me get a good old trace route here. Let's see. That was actually kind of spicy. There was a couple pings on that trace route that went over 1,000. That is not my idea of a good time. Okay. My ping is improving. Still dropping frames as we go. My latency and upload have gotten better. I wish I could just, like, pin this on my router or something, but no, everything internally is going just fine. So, it is rather certainly something a couple steps up. I wish I could have an option for different internet carriers around here, but no. Gotta love the natural monopoly. Alright. I think we might be alright. I'm at least reporting good. Actually, well, no more dropped frames, so that's a step in the right direction. Let's see if we can get live on the monitor here. Yeah, just a couple seconds back. We'll do the same on Twitch to see where we are. We're a full minute back there. Let's refresh that screen. Still close to a minute behind. That's awkward. Alright, let's give that one more. Let's just poke around a bit. Alright, I think that's likely as good as we're gonna get on Twitch. Let me just pop out and back. Okay, yep, I think we are back to live. So, let's try to get through the rest of the letter E before we have to take a break tonight. We got through part of everlasting there at the bottom. Ironic, as long as the connection troubles lasted. Alright. His book was once esteemed of great authority in the Anglican Church, and is still, I understand, studied with pleasure, the mind and profit of the soul. Exception, noun. A thing which takes the liberty to differ from other things of its class, as an honest man, a truthful woman, etc. The exception proves the rule, is an expression constantly on the lips of the ignorant, who parrot it from one another with never a thought of its absurdity. In Latin, exceptio probat regulum means that the exception tests the rule, puts it to the proof, not confirms it. The malefactor who drew the meaning from this excellent dictum, and substituted a contrary one of his own, exerted an evil power which appears to be immortal. Excess Noun. In morals, an indulgence that enforces by appropriate penalties the law of moderation. Hail, high excess, especially in wine. To thee in worship do I bend the knee, who preach abstemiousness unto me. My skull thy pulpit, as my paunch thy shrine, precept on precept, aye, and line on line. Could ne'er persuade so sweetly to agree, with reason as thy touch, exact and free. Upon my forehead and along my spine, at thy command, eschewing pleasure's cup, with the hot grape I warm no more my wit, when on thy stool of penitence I sit. I'm quite converted, for I can't get up, ungrateful he who afterward would falter, to make new sacrifices at thine altar. Excommunication. Noun. This excommunication is a word in speech ecclesiastical oft heard, and means the damning with bell, book, and candle, some sinner whose opinions are a scandal, a rite permitting Satan to enslave him forever, and forbidding Christ to save him. Gat Huckle. Executive. Noun. An officer of the government, whose duty it is to enforce the wishes of the legislative power, until such time as the judicial department shall be pleased to pronounce them invalid and of no effect. Following is an extract from an old book entitled The Lunarian Astonished, a Pfeiffer and Company, Boston, 1803. Lunarian. Then, when your Congress has passed a law, it goes directly to the Supreme Court in order that it may at once be known whether it is constitutional? Terrestrian. Oh, no, it does not require the approval of the Supreme Court, until, having perhaps been in force for many years, somebody objects to its operation against himself. I mean, his client. The President, if he approves it, begins to execute it at once. Lunarian. Ah, the executive power is a part of the legislative. Do your policemen also have to approve the local ordinances that they enforce? Terrestrian. Not yet. At least, not in their character of constables. Generally speaking, though, all laws require the approval of those whom they are intended to restrain. Lunarian. I see. The death warrant is not valid until signed by the murderer. Terrestrian. My friend, you put it too strongly. We are not so consistent. But this system of maintaining an expensive judicial machinery to pass upon the validity of laws only after they have long been executed, and then only when brought before the court by some private person, does it not cause great confusion? It does. Why then, should not your laws, previously to being executed, be validated, not by the signature of your president, but by that of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? There is no precedent for any such course. Precedent? What is that? It has been defined by 500 lawyers in 3 volumes each. So, how can anyone know? Yeah. A lack of faith in the system of governance and creation and enforcement of laws is also timeless. Funny how that works. Exhort. Verb. Transitive. In religious affairs, to put the conscience of another man upon the spit and roast it to a nut-brown discomfort. Exile. Noun. One who serves his country by residing abroad, yet is not an ambassador. An English sea captain, being asked if he had read The Exile of Erin, replied, "No, sir, but I should like to anchor on it." Years afterward, when he had been hanged as a pirate after a career of unparalleled atrocities, the following memorandum was found in the ship's log that he had kept at the time of his reply. August 3rd, 1842. Made a joke on the exile of Erin. Coldly received. War with the whole world. Fair. Existence. Noun. A transient, horrible, fantastic dream, wherein is nothing, yet all things do seem, from which we're awakened by a friendly nudge of our bedfellow, Death, and cry, "Oh, fudge!" Experience. Noun. Well, we would give in to experience. However, we are dropping frames and buffering once again. So, let's give it a moment. We have only 3 words left in the letter E. And I'm not sure that we're going to get them in any quick turnabout pace. We'll see. Okay, I think we're recovered. All right. Experience. Noun. The wisdom that enables us to recognize as an undesirable old acquaintance the folly that we have already embraced. To one who, journeying through night and fog, is mired neck-deep in an unwholesome bog, experience, like the rising of the dawn, reveals the path that he should not have gone. Joel Fradbink. Expostulation. Noun. One of the many methods by which fools prefer to lose their friends. Extinction. Noun. The raw material out of which theology created the future state. All right, that brings us to the end of the letter E. So, let's go ahead and take a few minutes, hopefully to allow the internet to decide to make up its mind whether or not we'll be able to continue tonight. So, take a little time, top up your drinks, stretch your legs, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to, hopefully, start making some progress through the letter F. All right. Oop, I don't remember taking my jacket off. What was that toggle? It is funny how the numpad just decides to hit buttons sometimes. Where were we on that? There we are. I'm continually shocked that I don't remember any of my hotkeys. It's funny how just not using them will do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and drop some frames. That sounds fantastic. Absolutely splendiferous. That's exactly what I wanted to do, was to just buffer a little bit more. That is fulfillment. Comcast, I am having a bit of a tiff tonight. I would prefer if you just let me connect. That would be fantastic. Fabulous, even. Alright, I think we're back to live. Perhaps. Okay, yep, I think that's as likely as good as we're going to hope for a little while. So let's try and make a little bit of progress with the letter F. Fairy. Noun. A creature variously fashioned and endowed, that formerly inhabited the meadows and forests. It was nocturnal in its habits, and somewhat addicted to dancing and the theft of children. The fairies are now believed by naturalists to be extinct, though a clergyman of the Church of England saw 3 near Colchester as lately as 1855, while passing through a park after dining with the lord of the manor. The sight greatly staggered him, and he was so affected that his account of it was incoherent. In the year 1807, a troop of fairies visited a wood near A, and carried off the daughter of a peasant, who had been seen to enter it with a bundle of clothing. The son of a wealthy bourgeoisie disappeared about the same time, but afterward returned. He had seen the abduction and been in pursuit of the fairies. Justinian Go, a writer of the 14th century, avers that so great is the fairies' power of transformation that he saw one change itself into 2 opposing armies and fight a battle with great slaughter, and that the next day, after it had resumed its original shape and gone away, there were 700 bodies of the slain which the villagers had to bury. He does not say if any of the wounded recovered. In the time of Henry III of England, a law was made which prescribed the death penalty for killinge, woudinge, or meminge, a fairy, and it was universally respected. Well, that was rather better a definition of fairy than I was expecting from this, given the time of writing. I suppose it probably just hadn't been shifted to a different nomenclature or different attribution at the time. So, I'll take it with relief. Faith. Noun. belief without evidence in what is told by one who speaks without knowledge of things without parallel. Famous, adjective, conspicuously miserable. I'm famously annoyed with Comcast this evening. Funny how that just works out, isn't it? This is certainly one of our worst days. It's been a while since we had a real, almost non-starter day like this. Okay, I think we're all right. Done to a turn of the iron, behold, him who to be famous aspired. Content? Well, his grill has a plating of gold, and his twistings are greatly admired. Hassan Brubady. Fashion. Noun. A despot whom the wise ridicule and obey. A king there was who lost an eye in some excess of passion, and straight his courtiers all did try to follow the new fashion. Each dropped one eyelid when before the throne he ventured, thinking 'twould please the king. That monarch swore he'd slay them all for winking. What should they do? They were not hot to hazard such disaster. They dared not close an eye, dared not see better than their master. Seeing them lachrymose and glum, a leech consoled the weepers. He spread small rags with liquid gum, and covered half their peepers. The court all wore the stuff, the flame of royal anger dying. That's how court plaster got its name, unless I'm greatly lying. Narami oof. Feast. Noun. A festival. A religious celebration usually signalized by gluttony and drunkenness, frequently in honor of some holy person distinguished for abstemiousness. In the Catholic Church, Roman Catholic Church, feasts are movable and immovable, but the celebrants are uniformly movable until they are full. In their earliest developments, these entertainments took the form of feasts for the dead. Such were held by the Greeks under the name Nemesia, by the Aztecs and Peruvians, as in modern times they are popular with the Chinese, though it is believed that the ancient dead, like the modern, were light eaters. Among the many feasts of the Romans was the Novemdiale, which was held, according to Livy, whenever stones fell from heaven. Comcast. Dropping about 8% of frames is not a landmark to aspire to. Certainly not. Certainly not. The worst is I had an opportunity to get like a fiber provider here, but the fantastic HOA decided that no, we don't want any of that, despite the fact that it would not cost anyone in the complex a dime to have the installation. They simply needed access to the buildings to run the cables, and that was it. But no. We can't have a duopoly. No. Heavens forbid. What I wouldn't give to be able to be on a fiber provider and off of cable and off of the indentured status under Comcast. If we hit 10% dropped frames, I may just say that's enough. We're up at about 9.2 right now. After having been going for an hour and a half, that is significant. I didn't think it was brought up to the neighbors at all. It was just the managing organization that said, "Nah, I don't think that's gonna be good." I'm like, well, I think at the next HOA meeting I may have to bring it up. Maybe I'll bring a representative from Metronet along with me. Be like, hey, these guys said they could do it for us. It would be more reliable and cheaper than the shit we're already using. Funny how that works. Faster, more reliable, more up, more down, less price. It's hilarious how a little bit of competition can rejuvenate an industry. But no. Alright, I think I'm gonna throw the towel in. We've been struggling far too much tonight. So let's go ahead and, you know what? We'll just take it up at F from the next time we read this. Because it's been one of those, it's an F it sort of night. So, with all of our love to our internet providers, I think we're going to do our best to have a calm night. It is only Tuesday, and I would prefer not to end it in a bottle. So, let's go ahead and wrap up for tonight. Given how things have been going, maybe we'll do Devil's Dictionary again on Friday. Unless I can find a book before then. But for now, we'll just do what we can. How much you're hearing of me as we're going through this is entirely up for debate. I have no idea how bad the buffer is right now, how bad stuttering is, but we'll do what we can. But I'm still dropping frames. The number has climbed. We're up over 11% of dropped frames of all of the frames that have been sent tonight, which is less than ideal. Oh, wow. Someone is out there reading Princess of Mars. Wouldn't you believe it? We're not the only ones that read questionable choices of books. Somebody's reading Alice in Wonderland. Let's see. Yep, this is not going well at all. Alright, I'm just looking through channels right now to see if there's anyone that is appropriate to raid. There's a few potential options. I'm trying to... I think my selections are not quite... not quite there. Let's see if there's any events going on. No, nothing there. Alright. We're just gonna have to grin, bear it, and take this one on the chin. So let's go ahead and just... We won't suffer a raid tonight. We'll just call it. We'll be back on Friday. Hopefully, I'll have been able to get a hold of someone from Comcast to say, get your shit together, please. But until then, we'll suffer in silence. As always, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And yeah, good night. It's a rougher ending than we normally have, but it is what it is.